Hey everybody, it's Bill Varney from FishTheSurf.com and Surffish Tackle with your Friday, May 1st surf fishing report. So thank everybody for being patient while I was gone last week fishing in Arizona. Really had a great time. We fished Saguaro Lake. We fished also Canyon Lake up there. Really good bass fishing. Excellent fishing up there for red ear, bluegill, all kinds of different fish. And we took along with us the worms, and of course the dried lugworms worked really well for those panfish. I think one of the reasons for that, and also in the surf too, is that when you hook on half of one of those worms, they float. So instead of laying on the bottom, it lifts itself up, almost like putting air into a live worm, a live freshwater worm, and letting it float up. Same idea. Really good luck in the lake with that. So those worms, well, I tell you, they've caught everything in freshwater and a lot of stuff in saltwater. An excellent bait. Check them out. So let's start with the water temperature. You know, the water temperature dropped a little bit this last week as a result of these high winds that were really kind of offshore in the Santa Barbara Channel. Santa Barbara, for example, went all the way from the 60s, really the mid 60s, all the way down to 55, and today it's recovered right back up into the 60s again. So that's a really good sign, and it's really good too that the water at some points in the spring gets turned over, because it brings a lot of nutrients to the surface that brings other bait fish and things in too. So it's very healthy for the environment. You know, as we look down the line a little bit farther with this water temperature, over this month we're going to see kind of equal swells between the northwest and coming out of the south. What'll change as we get later into the month of May is that all of those storms in the northwest will basically peter out, and we'll have wind from the northwest, but really not much swell from there. And then that will be filled in with swells from the south. Now, remember, in places like New Zealand, Australia, Chile, Antarctica, it's their fall beginning their winter. And in short time, they'll have even more cyclones rolling around down there, pushing swells up north. That will usually stay in place in like May, June, and July type of time. And then when we get into later July and August, those will peter out, and then we'll find more hurricanes that originate off of Veracruz, Mexico, that will take their place and continue to push warm water north. So this will continue. What the water temperature is going to go to, we really don't know. Usually the highest we see in a lot of, let's say Orange County, for example, central Southern California, is around 70, 72 degrees is where it would normally get in August. What will it be this year? We're not quite sure. We'll definitely keep our eye on that. But a really good sign, and I think water temperatures will be mitigated over the next month or so with this kind of offsetting swell pattern that's happening. And then talking about swells, right now we've got some pretty small surf, about chest high, waist high on south facing and west facing beaches. We're going to see once again a few more of these northwestern swells come in out of the Aleutians, out of Alaska, down the coast into California, and then those will pretty much be exhausted as we get toward the end of this month. And then we also see from the south a series of swells coming up from 4,000 to 6,000 miles away that will continue to push warm water this way, and I'm almost positive that will be augmented by these big cyclones we normally see in the South Pacific, really beginning here in the next couple of weeks or so. So not a lot on the swell front, nothing to worry about on the swell front as far as surf fishing. Really small to moderate sized surf, which is really good for surf fishing, of course. Tide wise, we've got some astronomical tides going on today. Of course, today is going to be the new moon tonight, the full moon tonight. And what that also means too is that there'll be a grunion run tonight. So keep your eye out for that. So tide wise, over the next probably 3 or 4 days, we're going to see some really good morning and evening tides. And then as we get into next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of next week, we're going to have neap tides where there's only 1 or 2 tidal changes in an entire day. And normally those tides are good for 2 things in particular. One is halibut fishing, because halibut are really lazy and they don't like these big tidal changes where they get in the current and it takes them away like a kite. So that's a really good sign. With these neap tides. And then the other thing is, if you're a fisherman who likes fishing off jetties and rock areas and all that, with smaller swells, with not as big tidal changes, makes it a lot safer to fish on those rocks. So an upcoming interesting week of good morning and evening big tides, followed early next week by all these neap tides or very small tides over time. So a transition there between general surf fishing at the beach to some really good halibut fishing going into next week. Wind-wise, you know, we've got this light offshore winds going in the morning, or side shore winds going in the morning now. We're going to continue to see that through the next week. I think our biggest change is going to be over the weekends. We've got probably 8 to 12, 8 to 15 at the most mile-an-hour northwest winds in the afternoon. Those are going to be replaced early next week with a low pressure system coming in. We're not quite sure if it's going to bring rain. It does look like rain. We're not sure how much at this point. But it will, that storm that will come in may change a little bit the wind pattern direction, so we don't have as much offshore in the morning, and we have stronger winds, maybe 20 to 25 knots in the afternoon beginning Monday into Wednesday or even Thursday. So keep your eye on that. Wind-wise, condition-wise, you're going to have better fishing conditions today, tomorrow, Sunday, and into Monday before this low pressure zone comes in. And then once again, tonight is Friday night is the night for the grunion to come in. They should start staging around 10 at night. They should really kind of come in earnest around 11, 11:30, 12, around that time. Remember, we're still in a no-take period. So although you can observe them, you can't collect any of them. And one good thing about observing them, not only with your family and the neighbor's kids and all that, which is a great experience for them, but once you know where they came ashore, that's where you want to go back fishing the next day, all the way up to a week after, at least sometimes even 2 weeks after, and fish that zone for halibut, because they're all going to be in there with some big white sea bass, big leopard sharks, things like that, feeding on those grunion, following them in and feeding in that general area. So look for that in this upcoming weekend, the run for grunion. That'll probably be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe into Monday night. We're getting closer every day to August open period for taking more. So hopefully if you're fishing with them, you took some a couple of months ago when the season was open. So let's jump right into the surf fishing report. Let's start up in Santa Barbara, where surf fishing slowed down earlier in the week with this turnover of the water and the wind up there, but it really picked up as the week went by, and certainly the best fishing this week up there was for halibut. Halibut were found all the way from Butterfly Beach or Graveyards, that zone there, East Beach, all the way up to Gaviota. Really the three best spots were the Graveyards area, More Mesa to Goleta Pier, and then up by Refugio. All three of those spots were kicking out fish this week. Anglers reported in with a 27-inch halibut, a 33-inch halibut, and then several sublegal halibuts caught by one angler right at More Mesa. So they're spread out. They're obviously following the grunion, and there's been a lot of bait in the inner area there of the Santa Barbara Channel that's near the beach. Those have all brought those fish in close to shore. There's some really good fishing up there for halibut. But once again, they're spread out in these three areas. As we talked a couple of weeks ago, they're kind of all along the coast. Now they've found specific places where they're feeding, and that's where you need to target them for sure. Perch fishing continues good up there. The perch are smaller. They're that 6 to 10-inch size, and of course that's what we normally see this time of year when the females have already gone ahead and gotten rid of all their babies. They'll normally go and hide in places like rock structure, and then all of those little fish will quickly grow and they'll all come close to shore to feed. So that's why there's so many small ones now, and although some of the big ones are still mixed in with the small ones, it's so hard to get to them because they're so hungry and the little ones are so fast. Really the only way to get around that is use a bait like a sidewinder crab, which is hard and difficult for the small fish to eat, and only the biggest fish will eat those. So sidewinder crabs to try to catch those bigger perch. And then last but not least in Santa Barbara, the white sea bass on those sublegals continues up in the Gaviota area. We haven't seen any legals in the past couple of weeks up there, but they are still staging around there, probably following both a fin bait and some squid. That's up in that area. Then when we make our way down to Ventura, fishing in Ventura has been excellent. So if you go from the Ventura Pier, I would say, all the way up to La Conchita, Emma Woods, Freya, all that zone along there, It's been kicking out spotfin croaker and corbina. A lot of corbina seen and caught along the Ventura coast in total. But really that zone has been really good for spotfin also. Anglers up there have been using live bloodworms, lugworms, and ghost shrimp to get those fish. And there's been some beautiful fish up there, anywhere from like 18 to 24-inch spotfin croaker in that zone. Emma Woods, or what we'd surfers called Ventura overhead for so many years we called it, has always traditionally been a really good spot for spotfin croaker. And between there and the Ventura Pier where they've been catching them, there's been spotfin along that whole zone in there. So that's been good. And then corbina fishing has just been like off the charts up there. Although people are seeing sand crabs in the area, there's a lot of the micro crabs, but anglers fishing things like the sand crab fly and then live worms like bloodworms, ghost shrimp, and lugworms. All of those have worked really well in the surf there for corbina. That continues to be good. With one angler, as we reported before, who fishes the fly all the time, has had numerous, like 3 to 5 fish days on those corbina, and these fish are beautiful fish. They're anywhere from that smaller 18-inch all the way over these 22 or so inch corbina in that area. So that continues to be really good in Ventura. And then once again in Ventura, you know, we continue to have a good bite on both some pretty good sized barred surf perch along the jetties in Ventura, along with a 15-inch pile perch that made its way into shore. That's a really big one right around the state record. So that was a great catch in Ventura too. So really good fishing this week in Ventura. Didn't get a lot of word out of Malibu this week, but did get word from one of our anglers down at Will Rogers State Beach that yellowfin croaker bite continues to be good down there. The fish aren't big, but they're really chasing after spoons like Castmasters and crocodiles. That continues to be good. And that's really true as we move into the South Bay from really El Segundo all the way up to the Santa Monica Pier. So it's Marina Del Rey, POP, all along that zone there, Dock Weiler. Once again, it's been good perch fishing for the smaller perch, and then also really good yellowfin croaker fishing for those medium size, like those 2-pound yellowfin croaker for anglers using Castmasters and crocodiles. That continues good along there. Hermosa Beach checked in this week as probably one of the hot spots in the South Bay. A lot of sand crabs being seen there, sand crabs that are bigger, sand crabs with eggs. And along that whole stretch, really from Palos Verdes, Torrance Beach, all the way to Santa Monica, tons of corbina are being seen along there. And probably the best catch I heard this week was one angler in Hermosa Beach using sand crabs with eggs that he dug up underneath the pier there, caught 4 corbina over 20 inches in Hermosa. So that continues to pick up, and as this water continues to warm up, the sand crabs continue to mature. This is their time where they're growing now, and they will begin to have more and more eggs as we get into later into the spring and the beginning of the summer here. The corbina are going to, and really all the inshore fish, are going to really pick up as they find that food everywhere. And of course, remember, not only do they see them in the orange egg or the reddish egg, but they also smell those eggs. Those eggs give off a specific odor to them, and the fish smell them underwater, and they're attracted close to shore. Look for that to really pick up. And then as we go down to Orange County again was really good this week. I mean, really the whole coast was good this week, but Orange County was particularly good this week. That Seal Beach to Surfside zone has been kicking out perch, a couple of big sargo in there, several sublegal halibut. No reports this week of any legals out of there. But when we make our way down the beach a ways and we get to Bolsa Chica, from really kind of the middle of Bolsa Chica all the way down through the Huntington Cliffs, super good fishing there for spotfin croaker and for corbina. As a matter of fact, one of our anglers yesterday went out to sent me a note. He says, hey, I'm going out now in the evening. Went down there to right around the cliff areas in Huntington Beach there, and ended up with a 20-inch spotfin croaker on his first cast and 2 corbina after that. All of those caught on soft shell sand crabs they found on the beach. So that is a really good sign, and there's no question, if those fish are right there, they're really from kind of the, once again, the middle of Bolsa Chica to the end of the cliffs down by Golden West Street. And then another thing which I didn't get any reports from is you'll find those same fish around the jetties in Newport Beach. Look at them from the first jetty around 60th Street all the way down to the Wedge. That area will fill in because there's tons of sand crabs down around there, and they love to key in on those. So that part of Orange County is good. And then when we went to southern Orange County, we went down to San Clemente area. Perch fishing continues to be good up down there on things like dried legworms, sand crabs, mussel, those type of baits. The fish are up to about 12 inches down there. Didn't really hear word of any other exotics down there. But I know as a fact, fishing down there year after year after year, that right now that zone from San Onofre's up to about Cottons has some terrific spotfin croaker fishing. And these spotfin croaker, both those that were eating the sand crabs, they will also be eating ghost shrimp this time of year. They love the ghost shrimp. And now is the time of year to put those on a hook and fish them, especially in that Cottons to San Onofre zone. They love them down there. So look for that to pick up, I think, over the next month or so, maybe even next 2 months. You're going to have some good spotfin croaker fishing and certainly corbina in that zone. And the other thing to remember about these spotfin croakers, unlike corbina and many other surf fish, they love to feed in the daytime and the nighttime, so you can fish them both times. A, and B, they're prevalent in both the open ocean, particularly near rock structure areas, and inside the bay. You'll find them in both places this time of year, because often this time of year they've been inside the harbor during the winter, and then they're going to transition out of the harbor through harbor entrances, estuaries, places like that, and make it out into the open ocean to look for sand crabs and other food. And that's why it's a really good idea to try to key in on areas where you have inland water, whether it's a harbor, a bay, an estuary, going across the beach and meeting the ocean. That's where you're going to find these spotfin croaker, and some really big ones. We've seen them certainly up to 10 pounds, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one that's going to get close to the 12-pound state record this year or into the next year. They're really doing well in the surf. And then as we make our way down to San Diego, you know, San Diego continues to be good. Oceanside, the hot spot this week for spotfin croaker was spotfin croaker really caught from the harbor all the way down to Buccaneer Beach. And anglers in that zone were using bloodworms and ghost shrimp. And they were very, very effective fishing the beach there all along that stretch and catching these nice spotfin croaker. One I saw this week was 24 inches from down there, probably a 5-pounder or so. A beautiful, beautiful fish. So that's been really good. As we make our way down the beach to San Clemente, to Carlsbad State, South Carlsbad State Beach to be particular down there. Fishing right below the campground there has been really good with more spotfin and more corbina there. And what are they using for bait? Sand crabs, ghost shrimp, lug and bloodworms. Those are the things that have been working down there. Then when we make our way down to Torrey Pines, you know, the report this week from Torrey Pines wasn't so great because there was quite a bit of eelgrass in the water floating back and forth. Anglers are still having good luck on catching some smaller barred surf perch along there. And then one angler using soft sand crabs this week got 2 corbina, smaller ones, right along there at Torrey Pines. And then as we go a little bit farther south, of course we go down to Mission Beach. Mission Beach continues to be good. It has quite a few, as it has had all winter long, these smaller barred surf perch along there. Anglers are using mussels, dried lugworms, and then of course all the lugworms, bloodworms, ghost shrimp, all of those are going to work there also. But one angler fishing down in that area using the Battlestar lure, which is the same lure that seems to be catching fish up in that Santa Barbara area, once again like that 5-inch hard bait, had 2 legal fish this week right along Mission Beach, 2 legal halibut right along Mission Beach. So great surf fishing report this week. I think it's going to be really good next week depending on what we see happen with this weather or so. You've certainly got to get down to the beach and do some surf fishing. So until next week, where I see you right here, good luck at the beach.